Welcome back to the Hundredth Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. I want to thank all of you members out there for your continued support of us. We love you guys like you just don't know. Namaste is about the best way I can put it. So,
yeah.
So we have Garnet Schulhauser with us tonight, and I'm not slaughtering your last name, am I? By the way.
No, you say it perfectly.
Okay, great. Well, with a last name like Kappenman, I do okay with bizarre names, I guess.
I always.
So we're gonna start out here. I'm gonna share an experience I had, and it was the first year of my wake up, and at this point, my house had burnt down, and I was, my marriage was on the rocks, and I was extremely confused. I was just in real turmoil inside, trying to understand what was going on. I'd already read through the Bible completely one time, and I had just started reading it the second time through. And I woke up one Saturday morning and had this absolutely irresistible urge to go out on my mountain bike, because I was being told, and it was like a voice in my head was saying, you need to go out and ride. There's somebody out here that you need to talk to. And it kind of freaked me out a little bit, but it was such a strong compulsion that I couldn't really resist it. So I got dressed and got on my bike and took off, and I was living in Palm Springs at the time, and I started riding my bike down Palm Canyon Boulevard, which is the main drag that goes all the way through Palm Springs. And there's a stoplight every block, and I was going stoplight to stoplight with a group of 5 other riders. And I went through 3 lights in this pack, and there was this one guy who was wearing, the black bicycle shorts and this sunshine yellow bike jersey. And I just kept my bike, like the steering wheels, the handlebars on my bike kept trying to turn towards this guy, and I kept getting these messages that this is the guy, you gotta talk to him, this is the one to talk to, this is the one to talk to. And I was freaking out a little bit inside my head. The wheels were just going crazy. And finally, at the 3rd light, I got up enough courage to say, excuse me, but I feel like I need to talk to you. And the guy turns to me and he says, it's always nice to meet a kindred soul. And I'm sitting there all slack-jawed. I have no idea what I'm supposed to talk to this guy about. And so I asked him, I said, the only thing that came to mind was, where do you think the world should go? What direction the world should go in? And he looked at me and said, true socialism. And I'm just sitting there. I'm have no idea what to say. I mean, I'm a complete blank as far as words are concerned. I stared at him for probably 20 seconds after he told me that, and I said, well, okay, thank you very much. And he smiles and goes, okay, goodbye, and he takes off across the street because the light had just turned green again. And at this time, we sat there through a whole light. And at this time, there were no other bikes that came up during that red light. And he took off across the street. I looked down, and I looked down for maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and I looked up, and when I looked up, there was a guy just getting across the street on a bicycle, but it was a different guy wearing a different colored jersey. It was someone else. It was a completely different person. And at that point, I knew that I had just had an encounter with a divine being. That's the best way I could describe it. So, I suppose I don't have. How do I form a question out of that, Ramon? Oh, so how did I know that eventually Albert and your and Albert's communication transformed. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, the first two times I met Albert on the street, the first sort of brief encounter, and the next time we had a conversation on the bench. And then, so he was the homeless man, and I mean, he was flesh and bones. I mean, I shook his hand and touched him and everything else, but, the third time then, I hadn't talked to him for a few weeks, and I was trolling the streets and wondering whether I could, when I get to see him again. And the third time, it was a Saturday afternoon, and I was, home all alone, and I looked out through my back window onto the deck, and there it was Albert sitting on one of the deck chairs. So I went out to him and I sat down beside him. We started talking. I didn't, I sort of wondered how he got there, but it didn't really matter because I really wanted to talk to the guy. And then so that was the first three times. And the fourth time in our conversation, again, I hadn't heard from Albert for a while. I patrolled the streets, where we had met the first time, and I kept on looking for him on my deck. And so finally, again, another Saturday, I'm at home alone, and I sat down on the deck chair and I said, Albert, where are you? I'd like to talk to you again. And he said, as a voice in my head, I'm right here. And I said, so, why aren't you, appearing as the homeless man, or why are you just talking to me, telepathically? And he said, it's just easier this way. He said, I appeared to you as the homeless man just to sort of, to get you eased into the conversation. And so that you, if I started talking to you initially as a voice in your head, you might have thought you were going crazy. So I used that disguise to sort of ease you into it, but we don't need that anymore. And so from now on, we can just talk this way. And so that's how the rest of the conversations unfolded. So it was only the first three times that he was the homeless man to me.
Wow. That's amazing. So let's, dive into reincarnation. And I know you had to ask this question about reincarnation to Albert and how that whole process works. And there's a lot of different views and ideas about I have to call them ideas because some people I hate to say it, but there are some people out there that do happen to make up stories about what they think would be a nice way for things to happen. And I'm just curious at what came through Albert to you about the whole reincarnation process.
Yeah, that was a very interesting discussion because that was one of the things, sort of the hot button for me. Anyway, Albert said that we incarnate into physical bodies on the dense plane, like Earth or elsewhere in the universe. We incarnate by our own choice, so that each soul makes its own decision when it's on the spirit side as to where it wants to go and where it wants to incarnate. And each soul can choose how many lifetimes they want. So you can incarnate on Earth as a human for, 2 lifetimes, or you can do it for 800 lifetimes. It's your choice entirely. And I was curious when he said, souls choosing to incarnate on Earth, because we all know Earth is not an easy place to live. I mean, it's got harsh physical conditions, extremes of climates, and it has earthquakes and tornadoes and floods and all that sort of stuff. And then humans, have a lot of negative, emotions that can harm and hurt people, like anger and fear and hate and greed and jealousy and all those things. So there's a lot of harm done on Earth by humans to each other and by humans to other animals and to the planet Earth itself. And, and I said to Albert, it's not a great place to come. So there I am sitting on the spirit side as a eternal soul. And the spirit side's a wonderful place. So why would I choose to come? I can understand if the source or somebody said, okay, you're going here and you have no choice, then that would make sense. But why would I voluntarily choose that? It didn't make any sense to me. And he said, well, you chose to come to incarnate on Earth so that you could learn and experience things that aren't available on the spirit side. So that, and that will sort of complete the knowledge that you have. And he sort of gave the analogy. He said, on the spirit side, you can learn about what happens on Earth and you can observe what happens on Earth. That's really like book learning. And in order to really understand, the conditions on Earth, the negative emotions, you actually have to incarnate into a physical body so that you have, practical hands-on learning. And that completes your knowledge and that helps you to evolve and grow as a soul. And your knowledge just wouldn't be complete unless you actually, experienced it in the physical body. And so that's why you choose to do that. And he said, before we come, we all prepare a life plan. The life plan is just basically sets out the major circumstances of our lives on Earth, sort of on a broad basis. It doesn't fill in all the details. And, it'll set out things like, where we're going to be born, who our parents are, our siblings, our relatives, our friends, coworkers, spouses, and various other events in our lives. And we plan our life plans with a view to trying to experience the things that we think we need to, take us up to the next step of our evolution. And the problem with the life plans is that because when we're incarnated in a human body on Earth, we have free will to act, and we don't remember what's in our life plans, or we don't remember where we came from. And so that's the challenge, because our free will allows us to do things that sooner or later we're all going to take a wrong turn or stray off the path. So it's not a fatalistic kind of thing. Our life plan doesn't determine everything. It's sort of the guideline and the goal that we choose and hope that we will follow. But when we get on Earth, we forgot whatever's in it, and we have no idea that we even have one. And so, our free will is going to take us off course. And so it's a bit of a sort of a crapshoot when you're on the other side as to whether you're actually going to follow precisely what you planned in your life plan or go off course. But he said it doesn't really matter, because whatever kind of experiences you have, even if they're off your life path, it's still a valuable experience. And, you go back to the spirit side and you can see what you missed, and you just plan another life if you choose to do that. So, and the reason he said that we don't remember what's in our life plans is that if we did, it would make things too easy. It would be like a teacher giving you the questions and answers to a final exam before the exam. There wouldn't be any point in writing an exam. And so that's part of the whole scheme of the school called Earth, is that you come into a human body, you forget where you came from or why you're there or what was in your life plan, and you have to sort of struggle through it. But the good news is, he said, that we don't have to sort of stumble along blindly forever, because we do have help. We each have 2 or 3 spirit guides, just like Albert was one of mine. And these are sort of prearranged before we're born. And these guides are like our coaches, and they're there to try to send us messages and give us guidance so that we can go down the right path when we come to a fork in the road. The problem is that their messages are very subtle. For the most part, it's not like Albert talking directly to me. That was very much of a one-off thing. For most of us, the spirit guides have to give us very subtle messages, like intuitive thoughts, like you mentioned, Tom, in the beginning of this second hour. The intuitive thought that you got that said you need to go out and meet this man. Well, that was coming from one of your guides, and it may be a hunch that you get, a gut feeling, a synchronicity that helps around you, or a coincidental event. These are all sort of little nudges and messages that we're supposed to listen to and try to understand where it's taking us, and then try to follow it. And they're trying to guide us on as close as possible that they can to make us stay on course in terms of our life plan. But like most humans, and I'm as guilty as the next guy, my mind is usually cluttered with all kinds of thoughts about what happened yesterday and what I'm going to do next week and next year. And so it's easy to miss these. And sometimes we hear them and we just, our mind kicks in and we just rationalize a different course of action. And we sort of dismiss it and as being not a message we should follow, because our mind knows better. And then we just follow our mind. And so we're quite often going off path, but that's just part of being a human on Earth.
Right. So what are spirit guides? Are they just like us, just more advanced souls, or are they from the angelic type order?
Well, they're basically like us. They may or may not be more advanced or evolved. It sort of varies. Most of the time, Albert said spirit guides are part of our soul group, and our soul group is just a group of souls that we tend to travel with on the earth plane. And so the people in your soul group, like one time you'll be the father, and another time you'll be the other person's son or daughter or grandpa, and we switch roles. And when we're doing our life plans, we'll usually we'll do it in conjunction with others in our soul group, so that everyone who plays an important part in your life now, has to agree to your life plan, and you have to agree to your part in their life plan. And so spirit guides generally, he said, are part of your soul group, and they've often incarnated on Earth with you before in some significant role. And so they know both you very well, and they also know what it's like to be living on Earth as a human. And so that gives them a lot of history. And they're on the spirit side, just being coaches. They're not especially, advanced souls. Sometimes they're more advanced than you are, but, they're basically like us. And at some point in time, we will be somebody else's spirit guides if we haven't already done so, in the past.
So what has he shared with you about the angelic host, or is there such a thing?
He didn't really get into it, and I didn't really ask him that question. The only time he used the word angel, was in the context of a guardian angel. And this arose because, he had, one of the things that surprised me the most about what he told me was that he said that no one on Earth dies by accident. He said, we all leave our physical incarnations when our soul decides it's time to go. And he said there's no exception, so that if, 300 people die in a plane crash, all 300 of those souls decided to exit their incarnations at the same time, even though that might seem a bit astounding. And so when he told me this, and I said, well, if I have free will and everyone else has free will and we don't know what was in our life plans, how is it that these clash of free wills on Earth won't sometimes result in a happenstance, an accident happening that might, kill my physical body before my soul is ready to go? And he said, no, that'll never happen, because we all have, in addition to spirit guides, we all have guardian angels who sort of follow our lives. And their role is to make sure that nothing like this happens to cause a premature death. And so they will intervene when necessary if circumstances, they can see circumstances arising where something might cause us to leave before our soul's ready to go. So he said there were special spirits, and he said people on Earth know them as guardian angels. But aside from that, he didn't talk about angels, and I never asked him that question, but I think it's something that I will ask him for the second book.
Ramon, you have anything along that train of thought before we move on to something else?
Well, I was a little different train of thought, but with the guardian angels, because the whole thing about time, and I've heard a lot of people say that there is no time and everything is happening at one time. So I'm wondering that, as you're sitting here being interviewed by us, at the same time you could be on the other side being somebody else's guardian angel. For example, you could be my guardian angel or my guide. And your 3D aspect doesn't know that, but your higher self or your spiritual self knows this. So, I was wondering along that line, like, for example, Albert can be your next door neighbor at the same time be your guide.
Yeah, that's possible. We didn't get really too much into the sort of the split nature of the soul, but in fact, he did say that, when it's only part of your soul that comes into your incarnation, and another part of it stays on the spirit side, and in fact, you could actually, which is a bit mind-boggling, but your soul can actually be sort of fragmented into several incarnations on Earth if it chooses to, which sort of ties into what you're saying about my next door neighbor could in fact be Albert on the spirit side, and he doesn't know it and I don't know it. Yeah, that's entirely possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And on a different aspect, the whole thing that I think boggles everybody's mind on this planet is the whole aspect of evil. And is there really evil, or is that just from the spiritual point of view, is there really evil?
Well, not evil in the sort of the religious sense. Yeah, where they say, what I grew up with was that there was an evil entity called the devil or Satan, and they set that up as being, you had to avoid being bad, otherwise the devil would get you, or the devil would take you away to hell. It was kind of they set it up as being an entity that sort of embodied all the evil. But in reality, Albert said, no, there's no Satan. There's no entity that causes bad things to happen. He said, on Earth, first of all, on the spirit side, nothing bad happens. There is no pain or suffering. There's no negative emotions. There's nothing that we would equate to with evil. It does happen on Earth, but it's caused by just the physical conditions on our planet. But for the most part, it's caused by negative reactions of humans to what goes on around them when they let their free will run amok, and they let their fear and their anger and all the other negative emotions run rampant, and that tends to lead humans to cause harm to other humans and to other animals and to the planet itself. And so there's no inherent evil as such on Earth. It's the circumstances of the school that cause bad things to happen, but there is no absolute right or wrong or good or bad. On Earth, it's all relative, and it's all caused by the conditions here and by how humans react to each other.
Yeah. It's just, it's so amazing the life that we live and that we chose to live and all the things happening. As far as the whole, I've heard you say before that Albert did say there is lots of life all over, the universe. But, what's the reason why they're coming and it seems that they're coming so much now? Like, a huge majority of people know there's something out there and there's something visiting. Did you guys get into that?
Just a little bit. I mean, he did say when we were talking about incarnations that of course you can incarnate all these life forms, and he said that there's so many different millions of different kinds of life forms, a lot of whom are way more advanced than we are in terms of technology. And he said many of these races or civilizations have been visiting Earth for thousands and thousands of years, and they still are visiting us. And the obvious response is that so that these people are coming in their UFOs, or what people call UFOs. And he said, yeah, they come in those kinds of vehicles. They come in all kinds of ways. Some of them come as beings of beings of light, without physical bodies, and we're not aware of them. And others come in their own spacecraft. He said, and he did acknowledge that the pace of these visitations has been picking up lately. And he said that's partly because humans are at a point where they've developed enough technology, enough destructive power that they can actually destroy everything on the planet and maybe even the planet itself. And so these beings from off the planet are really trying to come and trying to help us in whatever way they can. And he said they've chosen for the most part not to have open contact with the people on Earth, but they do have some discreet contact here and there. And he said eventually when it was appropriate that they would make open contact with us, or some of them would anyway. But basically they're here to observe and to help us. So nothing to be concerned about, nothing to be feared. They're just what he would call our space brothers and sisters coming to help us.
So kind of from what I'm gathering, the overall message about reincarnation and souls and how we pop around the universe in different incarnations, it sounds like there's been a lot of people who have talked about getting messages from whatever source that happens to be out there that planet Earth was in sort of a quarantine of sorts, and that the reincarnation cycle here is that once you got into the reincarnational cycle here, you were here until you completed the full course.
Yeah, I asked that because that was sort of my understanding of reincarnation before I talked to Albert, and I asked him about that, and he said no. He said you're not stuck on a karmic wheel. He said that karma is not like a law of the universe where you absolutely have to balance your karma from negative into neutral or positive before you can leave the earth plane. He said it's a system of measuring how you've lived your lives, and so you can tell whether or not overall you've been more positive than negative, or vice versa. But he said it's the absolute decision of every soul whether to keep on incarnating or on Earth, or whether to stop at any time. And you can stop and spend some time and hang out on the spirit side, or you can stop for a while, go to some other planet and have a few incarnations there and then come back to Earth, or you can just keep on incarnating on Earth. It's entirely up to you. But he said every soul sort of feels a strong moral obligation to make sure that their karma is balanced before they consider themselves to have graduated from the earth plane. But he said it's not the source or anyone forcing us. It's because we just very firmly believe as souls that it's just not a good policy to leave the planet until we've, brought our karma back into a neutral or positive balance. So, a lot of people talk about being trapped in karma or on the wheel karma. And he said, to the extent that we're trapped, it's because we have our own sense, our own moral imperative to keep on going. It's not because the source is telling us we must keep on going. So a bit of a distinction there, but he's saying, if you really get so fed up with your lives on earth, you can just stop and go back to the spirit side or go somewhere else and never come back again.
So, to touch on a hard subject, what about when it comes to suicide? Because, you have this web of life where every point of our life intersects with other people's. So, us talking here, we don't know what led us up to this. Well, we do know what led us up to this point, but we don't know what happened after this. And so, for example, if I committed suicide at 16, then, you wouldn't be interviewing here. I would have never met Tom, and that kind of ruins the person's life plan, for example.
Yeah, well, I mean, suicide, I did ask him about that. He, the Christian religion that I grew up with, of course, to them, suicide was a grave sin. Like, you're trying to thwart God's will by taking your life before God was ready to take you, and so on and so forth. So it was considered to be a grave sin, as you know. Albert said, well, it's not, I mean, there is no absolute right or wrong in terms of what happens on the earth plane. So suicide's not wrong in any absolute sense. Suicide may be wrong for the soul of the person who committed it because that person wasn't listening to the messages from his guides, wasn't listening to its soul, and just let its free will take off on a tangent, which led to a suicide. And he said, well, that soul goes back to the spirit side like everyone else. And because there's no punishment or judgment, they're back there like everyone else, and they have to sit down and evaluate their lives and look at what led them to decide to commit suicide. And for the most part, they'll sort of feel like, well, I kind of wasted that life. I wasn't, that wasn't one of my exit points that my soul wanted, that I wanted before I was born. And I kind of wasted that. So, you know what? I'm just going to have to go back and try again. And that's generally what happens. So it's not a sin, not a crime. It's just sort of a waste, if you will. But given the fact that you live for an eternity and you can have as many lives as you want, it's a bit academic. But when you get back to the spirit side, you will just look at it and say, oh God, why did I do that? I had so many other things I had planned in my life, and I've missed them all, and now I've got to go back to the drawing board, so to speak.
Yeah, I've definitely heard plenty of people saying, some people I know personally, they were about to commit suicide, and maybe the right person said something at the right time, and it might not even been directed at them directly, or they had, an angel or guardian show up, all these different points. So it makes a lot of sense, that they would come in and be like, oh, hold on. You don't know what you're doing, kind of thing. The other question is, when you have, for example, serial killers and, someone like Hitler, when they go to the other side, do they need time to kind of readjust, or is that just a role they were playing to kind of teach humanity a lesson?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. Albert said that when I asked him, when people do evil things, I said, do they plan that? Is that part of their life plan, or how does that all work? And he said, well, it's both ways. He said, sometimes people will actually plan to do evil, because they're playing a role, that somebody else in their lives will need or wants when they're incarnated. So they're fulfilling a role to allow somebody else, or maybe many people, to experience what they need to experience. So sometimes it's planned. Sometimes, he says, in fact, a lot of the cases, it's just somebody's free will running amok and going way off course, and causing damage, which happens. So it kind of happens both ways. But in answer to your question about a really bad guy, serial killer, when he goes off to the spirit side, yeah, in some cases, Albert said they need some sort of what he called cocooning, where they get sort of wrapped in a warm embrace of unconditional love by spirits over there who are used to bringing back these people and making the full transition to the spirit side. And so some of them do need a transition, a quiet time, to put sort of their past incarnation behind them and for them to realize they're back in the spirit side, and they have to sort of, review what they did and try to figure out where they went wrong, if they did go wrong. Obviously that wouldn't be the case if you had planned to do your evil deeds when you were on the spirit side and it was in your life plan. Then you just say, well, mission accomplished, I did it. But in a lot of cases, it just, people go way off track without having planned it. And they need a little special counseling for sure.
Yeah. Cause it sometimes seems like, there's some people that, are just, from our point of view, the 3-dimension point of view, just seem really horrible people. And it almost seems like they're protected. That's when you hear saying like, oh, he works for the devil kind of thing. Because, this person will get into car accidents, will be shot 5 times, all sorts of crazy things happen. And he walks away from them with no problem. Yet, you'll have the person who, lives a normal, good life, walks off, the sidewalk and breaks their neck kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I think part of that is the role the guardian angels play, so that the bad guy, because his soul wasn't ready to exit yet, the guardian angels step in, and if he gets shot 5 times, they'll make sure he doesn't die and he walks away from car accidents. So that's just sort of their role, to make sure that soul can leave when it chooses to leave. And if it's not ready to leave, then these guys can seem to be, taking all kinds of bullets and not dying. And that's just a very dramatic example of where guardian angels come in to help the soul make sure that the physical body doesn't die before they're ready.
Yeah. So on their part, there is no judgment as well at all.
Sorry, on whose part?
On the guardian angels' part.
Oh, no. No, I mean, there's no judgment. There's no judgment from them or the source or anyone on the spirit side. Nobody judges you except yourself when you've got finished, with your life. But no, they don't judge that. Their role is to make sure that, your soul gets the absolute decision as to when it's going to exit. And they're there to manipulate things and, whether it be physical intervention or just strong messages or whatever. For example, you might be, going to work one day and you get a strong message, intuitive message that says you should take a different route to work. And that's probably your guardian angel, because if you had you're changing your route because you had taken your regular route, you may have ended up dying in a car accident. So there's various ways they can do it, but they're really there to serve the purpose that they were designed to serve, and they don't judge you, and no matter how bad you may seem to people on Earth, to them, you're just playing out your role. You're playing out, you're in a play on Earth and you're playing your role. And when you're finished, you'll come back to the spirit side, and they're there to make sure that your play gets finished when your soul's ready to finish it.
Hmm. So go ahead, Tom.
No, I'm just curious. There's, I think everybody understands that we come here to experience and to learn and to grow. Have you nailed down some of the commonalities between all of us on the types of lessons that we're here to learn? What is it we're here to learn?
Well, I don't think I guess there is some commonality. I didn't really get into that much with Albert, but I think there's just a lot of lessons that we all need to learn. Like, we need to learn how to deal with, our negative emotions that arise when we react to things that happen to us. So, something in the earth, the climate or the natural disasters happen, or another human is causing us harm. We have to be able to, we have to learn to shut down our negative reactions, our negative emotions, and react positively. And that's sort of the underlying major challenge for everyone who incarnates on Earth, is to learn to deal with, and treat people with love and forgiveness and compassion, and forget about your negative emotions. And that's the overall underlying big challenge for everyone. And then, of course, there's always individual challenges, and those are, depending on what you've experienced before and what your past lives have taught you or not taught you, you sort of tailor what you want to experience based upon that, which could be all over the map. So aside from the main underlying lesson that we all need to learn, everything else is sort of it's up to the individual soul.
Yeah, I definitely see that learning how to control the reactions to negative circumstances. I mean, that ties all in right into the whole creating your own life and what we project out into the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he said that humans should never feel like they're victims. We're not victims of some arbitrary universe or some arbitrary God. He said we create our own reality here. We have to understand that, and we do it in two parts. One part is we prepared a life plan, so that put us into the place we were born and our parents and our early environment and so on. So that sort of set the stage. But then as we go through life, we create our reality by how we react to what happens to us, to all the events. And like you said, we can choose to react positively or negatively. We can see the glass as half full or half empty. We can choose to be miserable or we can choose to be happy. And that's all part of our free will decisions and actions. And that's sort of the other part of how we create our reality as we go forth. Like how, do you want to be miserable or do you want to be happy? And that's, that's the major component of our learning experience on Earth is how we react to things.
Yeah. Right. So when someone, for example, and I'm sorry I keep asking like these kind of down questions, but it's for a lot of people it's very hard to understand. You see a young child who's murdered. Is it something that they chose, or that person who did the murdering just went out on amok, with their free will?
Well, on the murderer's part, it could have been either planned or it could have been just a free will running amok. On the child's part, the soul of that child decided it was time to leave that incarnation. And so if it was planned, then of course that was a built-in exit point for that child in its life plan, and so they chose that exit point. And if it wasn't planned, then the soul of that child could have seen the events coming where the murderer would run amok with his free will. And then the soul of that child could choose, well, okay, I'm either going to avoid this so I won't be around to be killed, or if I want to have that as my exit point, then I'll be right there at the wrong time at the wrong place so this guy can kill me. And so, ultimately it goes back to the soul of that child will choose that as an exit point. And so if a young child is killed, the soul's decided it's time to leave. Which may seem strange to a lot of people who may say, well, why would you bother incarnating on Earth to live only 6 years and then die tragically? And Albert said, well, maybe the soul only needed 6 years to learn what it wanted to learn in this life. Or maybe the soul didn't need to learn anything and it came here to provide a life lesson for its parents so that the parents could go through the experience of having one of their children, die tragically, through a bullet to the head. So those are the reasons. I mean, it all makes sense, I guess, when you think about it. There's a lot of reasons for people to live to be 80, and there's reasons for people to live only to be 6 years old. And whatever they didn't experience, or they chose to exit early for whatever reason, they can always come back again and try to live those lessons in another life.
Yeah. I always wonder because when, let's talk about these, new children that are, what I would call new children coming in that just seem to be, these, we're operating on, let's say 60 watts and they're operating on like 200 watts. Just completely on fire, and their knowledge is just, they have so much knowledge and the way they figure things out.
Yeah, Albert didn't, we talked briefly about it, and, a lot of people call them indigo children or crystal children. he said that there's a lot of sort of, more evolved souls coming onto the earth plane, and they've been doing this for the last 30 or 40 years, and they're going to continue. And he said this is part of the sort of the game plan to help humans save themselves and not destroy everything on the planet or the planet itself. So this is all part of the help we're getting. We're getting help from our, from ETs on the dense plane that live on other planets, and we're getting extra help from the spirit side, where more and more advanced souls are volunteering to come into Earth, into human bodies to help us. And so the children you're speaking of are likely more evolved souls who come in with a bit of a head start than most of us did, and they're here to help us. And I have a lot of faith that they will help us and we'll be able to save ourselves, but time will tell, I guess.
Yeah. So being around, for example, around Albert or anybody like masters or those avatars, when they incarnate here, do they, just by them being here, forget about them doing anything, do they help pull up the energy up of the planet or the consciousness?
Yeah, so some of those advanced beings actually, when they incarnate, they don't actually have to do anything. They can just sort of spin off positive energy just by being here, and they're not aware of who they are or what they're doing, but they can create a positive balance in the energy around them that other people pick up. And so they're very special souls, and it's we don't know who they are, and they don't even know themselves unless they have a past life regression with Laura's canon. But those people are around, and they're all part of the force that's coming to Earth to try to help us, help us make our shift.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the whole, going back to, what was that, 4th grade or 3rd grade, the law of average, when they teaching you how to do an average. And, let's say the average, I'm just making up numbers now, but let's just say the average human is like 50. And you have 50, 50, 50, but then you have, a few, let's say I have 100 people. You have 2 or 3 people that are 1,000, and then the rest are all 50. Just by them being so high, it brings up the whole average up so much higher. So from my point of view, that's kind of the way I see it. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. Yeah, just by, these people, just by being around other humans, they help to sort of pull the crowd up with them to some degree. And the crowd will never get to sort of the high point that they are, but they will help to sort of drag them up, higher on the plane. Yeah. And that's, I think that's a great analogy. You have a few people who are 1,000, and they're there to try to drag up all the people like us who are 50s.
Yeah.
Right. So I know we all have our personal path and our personal growth and journeys and stuff, but what about a collective path for the planet Earth? Was that discussed?
No, it wasn't. It was, he did say that the Earth is at a crossroads, and humanity, in fact, is at a crossroads, and as you had mentioned earlier, that we're either, undergoing or about to undergo a major dimensional shift. But he didn't want to get into that in detail. He just said that was something, as I mentioned earlier, for the next book. And so, he sort of left it at that, but he did say that when the time was right, he would answer my question to the fullest extent, and I could ask him as many questions as I wanted to. So I'm looking forward to that when I talk to him, over the next few months. Hopefully that'll be in the second book, Tom.
Oh yeah, I hope so. I can't wait now. I'm curious to hear his response, because he sounds pretty right on there. So
maybe we should call Garnet every month. Are you done yet?
Yeah. Are you done yet? Yeah. I proofed your book.
Yeah, no, not done yet.
Yeah. So what about, okay, I'm going to go back into the first hour, I suppose, into I suppose this gets all into the mythologies and stuff surrounding Christianity and some of the major religions of the world. there's a big story about, the third of the angels being cast down on the planet, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The war in heaven, the angels of light versus the angels of dark. Any kind of a conflict then that you're aware of that's going on out there like that?
No, I mean, there are sort of no dark angels or evil beings or people in league with the devil. That just doesn't happen. And so in the spirit side, everyone lives in total harmony. I mean, everyone lives in love and peace and security, and there's no animosity, there's no conflict, there's no wars. So that's just mythology. That's just my take on that is it's just part of the religious myth that a lot of religions have perpetrated on us, and and according to Albert, just doesn't happen. The only Earth is where you have evil and caused by men and conditions, and you have conflicts and you have wars and you have pain and suffering. It doesn't exist on the spirit side, and everyone lives in total harmony. It's just according to him, it's just a wonderful place, and there's no battle between good and bad over there, because it's bad.
We are amazing creators, and I suspect that the majority of all those types of stories that are out there, there may be some substance to them, but it is, I think it's a creation of man here on this dimension. Personally,
I entirely agree. Yeah,
I mean.
I wondered too, how much is that maybe like an ET war, and from our understanding back then, that's how we would look at it, or advanced humans that lived here at one time that they tried to play the role of gods of the other humans.
Yeah, I don't know where it originated from. I didn't ask Albert that question, but it could have been anything. There could have been some small basis in history that they just glorified and built up, or it could have been just totally invented. Don't really know, but certainly a lot of religions have those views, including the Christians. And Albert just says, well, no, it's a man-made myth created by men to serve their own purposes, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I was just thinking along the line of the Indian myths, the whole Baba Gita. Is it, Tom?
Who? Babaji?
No, not Babaji. The book, Baba.
The Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, that one.
Bhagavad Gita. That's a hard word to pronounce.
Yeah. Where they talk about these two sets of gods were at war with each other, and they have these spaceship kind of things.
Vimanas,
and even the description of like nuclear war kind of thing. Almost the exact same description as like Nagasaki and Hiroshima kind of thing.
Did you guys touch on previous civilizations here on the planet?
Just briefly, he mentioned that, where humans are, he said, we're at an advanced state of civilization, but he said, the Earth has had other human civilizations that were very advanced as well, like Atlantis and Lemuria. And he said there was actually, several others that we're not even aware of. He didn't get into the details, and he said maybe at some point that he could, but he did say, some of those civilizations were very advanced, even more so than we are now, and they all came, fell down and crashed and burned. And the reason that, the people on the spirit side and our, fellow ETs on other planets are really sort of flocking here to try to help us is because they don't want that to happen again. Because every time one of these civilizations crashed and burned, there'd be a few survivors and they'd have to go somewhere and sort of start over because they had lost all their technology. And so humans are quite capable again of doing that. And there's an effort afoot to try to really help us get rid of our negative emotions and get rid of our fear and our greed and so on, so that we don't cause that destruction and we can just live in peace and harmony. So that's having witnessed all this, several civilizations destroying themselves, they're really according to Albert, determined to try to stop this particular civilization now from repeating the pattern.
Yeah. So as far as did you ever talk to him about maybe any like negative ETs or with the abductions and things like that?
No, he didn't mention that any of the ETs are negative. He said that they're all, basically have good purposes. Some are here to observe, some are here to try to help us in subtle ways. We didn't talk about the abductions, but I don't think that the abductions are a negative thing. That's my own personal view. I mean, I think it's just part of their observational process that they're abducting people to take samples and to try to understand how we got to where we are and to see if they can find a way to help us. So I don't see the abductions as being done by negative ETs. I think it's all positive.
So, has he given humanity a report card? How are we doing? What's his impression of how we are doing as a race and how we are getting, are growing? Are we progressing as expected or,
Well, yeah, his report card basically was that we've been through a number of similar stages, as I mentioned, and we've crashed and burned, and now we've developed ourselves up again. And he says, we're probably further along the path of increasing our vibrations than some of the other civilizations were, but we've got a long ways to go, and it's not a done deal yet. We can still end up blowing up our planet. But he was confident, and he said that with all the help we're getting, he was comfortable with the fact that eventually we would get rid of all the negativity on our planet and make the shift. So, but there's no guarantees. It's like, we have all these humans on our planet running around exercising free will, and there's just no guarantee. But with all the help that we're getting, he felt that we were sort of on the right path, and we just needed to continue to plug away and work out our problems.
Let's see, Ramon, anything else we need to get in here?
Well, any recommendations that Albert might have made for each personal individual to maybe help raise their vibration or pretty much to help our human race?
Yeah, I mean, you go back to the basics. To raise your vibrations and to help out your human race, you have to get rid of your negative reactions, get rid of your negative emotions. The biggest one, of course, is fear and your anger and your hate, and your distrust of fellow men, and you have to learn to react in a very positive fashion, in a loving and compassionate way. And that's the goal. If you can do that, then you're on your way to increasing your vibrations and to making the shift upwards. As long as you hang on to your negative emotions and your negative reactions, you just aren't going to get there. And so the help that we're getting, particularly from the spirit side, is to try to get the message to us that we need to get rid of our negative emotions and embrace love. And when we get there, then we're on the path to the next dimension. So that's just a very basic thing that we all need to keep in mind. And so the next time somebody does something to you in a negative fashion, cuts you off in traffic or whatever, my reaction might be to be angry at that person. We have to sort of control that and just, try to send a beam of love towards the person and understand that person, is on their own journey and, they probably didn't mean to harm you. But I mean, that's just a simple example. I mean, there's so much negativity in our world. We have a lot to clean up, and we've all done bad things that we regret, but the past is the past. We have to look forward now into the future and say, next time somebody does me something that's harmful or hurtful, you have to sort of resolve, I'm going to react in a positive fashion. And if we all did that, we'd be in a good place in no time at all.
Having that positive reaction is powerful in the world. I mean, that's a huge key right there is, man, we are so powerful when we get ourselves in alignment. And, you can walk into a room and just blast it with love and change the whole environment. In a heartbeat.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tom. And that's something that, you recognize and Ramon recognizes it and I do. But it's often easier said than done in terms of our own personal, day-to-day life experiences. But all we can do is to try to do it ourselves and then to spread the message to everyone around us to try to do the same thing. And, it can happen and we just have to work at it.
Exactly. And that's why we do this show is because we want this to spread. We want it to spread. We want the 100th monkey.
Exactly.
So.
And I think we're probably up to about 97 right now.
We're on a lot of levels. I think the 100th monkey is an active principle.
Yeah.
Just look at all the people who are asking questions today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you may be right. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's some big ones. There's some big monkeys out there that still need that last couple added to it. Some big game changers that I feel are out there. And
yeah, well,
just around the corner.
You guys are doing a very good job at, as you said, of trying to help spread the message to everyone. And I hope that all your listeners will listen to your show every week and learn from it and try to resolve to react positively to everything that happens to them. And if you guys keep on spreading that message, that's a big help.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, Garnet, anything else you'd like to throw out there to our listeners before we get out of here? And then if you would share where they can pick up your book at again. And
okay, yeah, no, I think we've covered all the highlights. Obviously, there's a lot more detail in my book, but and I encourage everyone to read it. And again, the title of my book is Dancing on a Stamp, and it can be picked up at all the usual online stores like Amazon and Barnes & Noble. There's actually, if you go to my webpage, which is dancingonastamp.com, on the very homepage, there's a section there that says you can buy the book, and you can click on various online stores to buy it. It is in some bricks and mortar stores, but it's kind of hit and miss. So if you can't find it in your local neighborhood bookstore, your favorite one, they can sure order it for you. And if you want to wait for that, you can go to one of the online stores and you can get it in paperback form or in ebook.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, Garnet, man, I'm waiting for that next book. So, you'll definitely have to, keep us posted on how that's coming along. And, as soon as it comes out, we'll definitely have to have you back on the show.
It'd be my pleasure to be back on your show. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening, and thank you guys for supporting Ramon and I, and all of our wonderful guests. You guys know. Oh, we love you, and can't say enough good things about you. So, condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
And that phone that's ringing there in the background is Perry Mills. Pick up the call. So, we'll let him take us out of here. Namaste, guys.